What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Today we're talking about the top 10 mistakes that new squad players tend to make. And this video is meant to be educational for new players to understand some of the things they shouldn't do and some ideas for how they can improve their experience when jumping into squad. But first, hit the subscribe button, leave a like, drop a comment down below if there's a mistake that I've missed that you often see by new players. And if you're trying to get your friend into squad, you can use my code SLAY3K30 for 30% off their game key at the link in the description below. Now, if you are new to squad, I do have a beginner guide and a tips video that can help get you started. There's not a strong tutorial system in the game itself, but there is a quick tutorial to get you some basic information. A lot of the education you're going to find on the game comes from YouTube and just playing the game. Now, this video is not meant to shame new players, but give you some additional ideas about how to get started. And the first thing you shouldn't do when you are new to squad is jump directly into a multiplayer server. Now, I realize that new players are buying the game because they want to jump into that experience, but it's not advisable. It can be an overwhelming experience to jump right into a server, whereas if you spend some time in Jensen's learning maybe some keybinds, the basics of spawning, you can figure out a lot pretty quickly that will help you out immensely in your first time playing multiplayer. Just moving around, firing at the range can get you familiar with the basic mechanics of gunplay and the movement system that is in the game. From there, you can also start to figure out keybinds and make customizations that could be significant in the long run. As well as getting a feel for the game's HUD, understanding what you need to look at and where you need to look can be helpful for those around you while in-game and yourself during a firefight. The next thing you need to get worked out is your headset and microphone. Folks will join servers without either, maybe one or the other, and it's not ideal. You need a headset to be able to hear your team because communication is key, but you also need a microphone to be able to communicate. And if you're new to squad, you need to understand that there are layers to the communication, something I talk about a lot in my beginner guide. You need to be able to communicate to those locally around you within proximity of the proximity chat, as well as your squad itself. This is key to the game and key to your experience in playing the game. Because with this, you can ask questions, you can learn, you can work with your squad, and reduce the frustration of those around you that are trying to help without your communication and response. Now, after you spend some time in the settings to make sure your audio settings are set up properly and you're ready to join a server, when you do, be sure to check the rules, along with the basic information a server may provide, including the tags, because you may be able to find out whether you're joining a server that is leaning more new player friendly versus a server that may be leaning more experienced player friendly. This is important because it can affect your experience and the expectation other people may have around you. Now, because you're new, a lot of these rules may not make a ton of sense, but it's important just to at least have concepts of what the community or that server itself requires of their players. Some of the more simple rules that many of us are familiar with in other games like main camping may be helpful to understand in terms of where you should or should not be on the map during a round. And a lot of these rules will change from server to server, so it's important to keep track of that information. This can help when you are reporting somebody else for doing the same thing and understanding what that server expectation is, or just making sure that you're playing within the guidelines of that server. And having that information in front of you early can help guide what communities you might want to be a part of and what experience you're looking for when playing squad. Now, the next mistake goes back to having a microphone. The mistake is talking too much, not spending enough time listening to those around you and listening to what's happening. Instead, you are just constantly talking. And since you're new, you probably don't have great familiarity in callouts or information that's viable for your squad or squad lead. It's important to spend a decent amount of time in game, just familiarizing yourself with concepts, things that are happening, vehicles, and just basic callouts. It's one thing to say that a vehicle is at 250 on your compass and pass that along to your team. It's another thing to talk about what the vehicle looks like and what it's doing every second. Essentially, you need to know the difference between a call out and commentary. If you want to make good call outs early, just keep it simple and concise. Utilize your compass to help give a direction and just name whatever you see, whether it's a vehicle or infantry or something else in an area. It'll also be helpful to know how you died if you can translate that concisely. Just remember not to hot mic every single detail about the game and the experience around you. Now, you noticed I haven't talked about squad leading, and this is important because as a new player, you should not be squad leading, and this is a mistake that often happens. If you are new to the game, you should not create a squad. Instead, you should join a squad. The SL role relies heavily on game knowledge, and it can get very overwhelming, especially with the layers of communication and understanding what you should be doing, especially with less familiarity on what's happening around you. Instead of trying to SL early on, spend some time and join squads and play under a variety of SLs. Of course, with that, you are sort of subscribing to the fact that you're going to have bad SLs and good SLs. And the experiences you may have playing squad will vary. So at a minimum, if you are playing with a not so great SL, you may learn what not to do when you become an SL or start playing that way. But the important aspect is that you spend time learning the game. You start to develop a library of knowledge and experience that you can utilize when you do decide to take up being a squad leader. Now, the next thing that often relies on whether you're an SL or not is taking a vehicle from main. That's a helicopter, a piece of armor, a light vehicle, whatever. Everything costs something in squad, so your vehicles have a certain amount of tickets associated with them. Everything from 1 ticket, 5 tickets, 10 tickets, 15 tickets. Everything costs something, and that can hurt your team if these vehicles are lost or even abandoned out in the field. Now, if you played squad, you know you need to be an SL to claim a vehicle. So since you aren't going to be playing SL, because we already talked about that, hopefully you're just jumping into the vehicles that your SL has claimed for your squad. Without knowing much about a vehicle, for example, the difference between a transport and a logi, you can seriously harm your team. I've seen lodges get taken out, either abandoned or destroyed early, that hampers the team for the entire round. It's no different with armor. Taking out an IFV that may be worth 10 tickets and losing it can cause damage. Same with a tank and a helicopter when it comes to logistics and movement. But this goes back to the point of learning the game and experience the game as a squad member before you try to jump to a squad leader. And when you are jumping into a squad, it's important to know what roles you should play early on, which brings me to my next mistake. You don't need to be taking a marksman kit on your first day. Nor do you need to take AT or combat engineer or raider or several of these roles that may rely on more game knowledge. There's experience that comes from playing basic roles and just understanding the game flow and what's happening before you take out kits that apply more pressure to you understanding how the game operates. Not to mention, kit availability is based on squad size or the number of kits available in the server itself. So taking these kits or roles can negatively affect the experience of everybody on the team. So my recommendation is always for new players to take the rifleman role, something basic. You have an ammo bag that can help resupply your AT, your medics, and your SLs, along with anybody else in your squad or on the team. It may not be sexy, but it is undervalued, and it can be a significant thing to have in your squad. I know a lot of folks would recommend starting out as medic, and I don't entirely disagree, but I think rifleman is a better starting place, and then you can sort of work your way up pretty quickly to medic. Medic just takes a layer of understanding where not to be. Like, you shouldn't be at the front line. You need to be mixed within the squad, behind some members of the team, and that's often where you're going to be. So you have to pace yourself differently. And it's important to understand that because as you're healing or picking up people, you're often not moving, putting you towards the back anyway. And a good medic is a patient medic that can help pick up the squad as things go sour. Now, once you get your rifleman kit and you're ready to work with your squad, don't leave the squad. It's not uncommon to see new players try to go Rambo mode and push a certain angle or try to do things on their own without the group. To find your squad, you should see everybody in green and you need to stick with that group unless otherwise told by your SL. There's a lot of times some new players just don't know where to spawn or how to kind of coordinate that before they get on the field. But if you have a headset and microphone, maybe worth asking so you can stay within the group, work with the group, and get a much better understanding of how the game works as a team instead of trying to do your own thing. Your job early on needs to be working with your squad, staying within the parameters of what your squad leader is trying to do and what your squad is trying to do. If you are just seeking out firefights and dying, you're not going to learn much about the game. Now, if you are working with your squad, the next thing that a lot of new players forget to do or don't know to do is checking your map all the time. This should become almost like a compulsion to be very map aware of what's happening around you, where your squad is, where your teammates are. A lot of folks will rebind the M key for map to a different key to make it a little bit easier and faster to pull up so that you can track where things are happening. This also helps prevent a lot of TKs because you don't have a lot of visual indicators of teammates and enemies. You have to be aware of camos, which takes time and game experience. You do typically have some sort of blue indicator with a name above friendlies, but that's only within a certain distance that typically shows up and is very apparent. It's sort of the same for your squad, which will actually show up as a green indicator. So build good habits in checking your map before you enter fights. Consistently be checking your map, know where your squad and team are by checking your map, and hopefully reduce TKs, but also provide good intel on what's around you. Now, while you're doing all of this, another mistake I often see new players make is trying to take the game too seriously early on. Losing and dying are a part of the game, and that's a part of that learning experience. You need to do this to gain more information about how things are happening within the parameters of how squad operates. A lot of learning squad is just trial and error, trying to understand how things work, how things don't work, and losing because they don't work. Most servers that you're going to join that are populated are going to drop you into a more casual environment. So taking things in stride, understanding that you may die, you may lose, and you may have to repeat certain steps is important to keep in mind. Basically, you shouldn't hop in and just expect every server to operate as a milsim experience. Take the opportunity early on, day 1 through day whatever, build up hours and experience playing the game to understand the mechanics, how things sort of work and operate, because there's a lot of small stuff to learn in squad that just takes hours and experience to get there. And that includes a lot of dying and losing rounds. So don't get too upset, take it in stride and continue to develop your skill set. There's plenty more that could probably make this list, like lying prone in the middle of the street isn't the best concealment. But whatever additions or suggestions you may have, throw them in the comments down below. And with that, I hope that this gives some new players some ideas as to adjustments they may make when they start out playing squad. As always, hit the subscribe button, leave a like on the video, and I will catch you all next time.